Caseworker helps homeless man to find his true identity, ends up learning a surprising truth. But before we start, please make sure to subscribe to m&rtv and hit the bell so you never miss any upload from us. Also, leave a like right now. Helinski relocated to the U.S. with hopes for a better future. However, the future had other plans for him. Having no friends, no family around, the man soon got homeless. He began to live his days on the street. He spent 3 years on the streets, spending for himself until a caseworker named Inman decided to help him. The caseworker and an officer had made it their mission to get the man an identity and a better life. Luckily, they even succeeded in doing so and think that their task is done when a surprising detail about the homeless man comes to their notice. Something that he had done years ago was going to change the caseworker's perception about the man. Helinski had his childhood spent in Poland. He decided to relocate to the States. He was very excited about moving to the States. However, little did he know, his decision of moving would mark an unforgettable event in his life. Things were not the way he had thought. The man received the most horrific welcome from the people of the country. He got his personal identification documents taken away from him. He had no home to live in. The place he had relocated to was Tampa. The city is famous for white sand beaches and good restaurants floating on the water. Helinski could not enjoy any of them, as he was far away from all that struggling, day to day, for keeping his body and soul together. The man did not have his ID with him, and without his ID, it was even more difficult for him to get a place to put up in a homeless shelter. The man had nowhere to go. In the absence of all the options, he had to make the streets his shelter. He told, "I just managed on my own. I remember having a cardboard box and sleeping by the bus." He went on, "I'd be underneath the benches there and no one would see me." Helinski had no existence for the people. No matter how much he tried, he could not get his identity verified. The loopholes in the system proved to be a big hamper in the work, and unfortunately, it was just the beginning of his hardships. The man had no money. He was broke and helpless. Finding a bed every night was a difficult task, and what more difficult was to get a hot meal. Not everyone is lucky enough to get a square meal. The man sometimes had to sleep on an empty belly. The man had no family. Even though he managed to get a shelter and meal for himself, he still craved love and respect from people. Some people would shoo him away like a fly, and others would take no notice of him. He had gotten tired of it, but there was nothing he could do. He had seen a lot in a short span of time. Unfortunately, the ordeal did not seem to have an end. He found a home, but that home was not like a usual home built of bricks. It was made of cardboard boxes. Every night after being insulted by strangers, he would go back to his home and spend the rest of the night. The best thing about time is that it changes. The time of the homeless man, too, was going to take a turn. He had gotten fed up of finding bed every night, so one day he took the step of finding a bed at the Hillsborough County's Community Housing Solutions Center in Tampa. The hostel, renowned as DACO, was going to turn his life around. DACO works with the aim of providing shelter to the homeless. It had begun with a mission in 2015. Antoinette Triplett, Tampa Hillsborough Homeless Initiative's Chief Executive Officer, puts it aptly: to reduce the number of people who experience homelessness and also the length of time people experience homelessness. The peculiar case of Helinski was given to a caseworker of DACO. He was assigned with the task of looking into the current situation of Helinski. This one-of-a-kind case had intrigued him to a great extent, so he decided to get to the bottom of it. No need to say that the case he had taken into his hands was very complicated, but the man was too determined to cow down. The story of this homeless man had moved him completely. He could not help but take up this case after he heard this sad story. He knew from the beginning that this case was going to take lots of his attention and time, yet he chose this one. The man's intuition was constantly telling him to pursue this case, and so he did. Charles Inman, the worker, said he needed to have an identification, but we couldn't get an identification without a birth certificate. Moreover, it was too difficult to turn down his request. The man had pinned him with high hopes. The caseworker did not want to give him false hopes. Even though he really wanted to help him, he knew the chances were very low, as the man held no documents. However, he told him that he would do whatever he could. That night, the caseworker couldn't sleep. He could feel the burden of his promise that he had made to that helpless old guy. He kept tossing and turning on the bed. Would he be able to deliver on that? Next morning, he went to the center to meet the old man. The man was still doubtful whether he should go ahead with the case or not. But what he saw there broke his heart completely. He saw the old man praying to God. He was thanking God for finally listening to his prayer and sending the caseworker into his life. It was then the caseworker decided to pursue this case with all his heart and soul. He said there was no other option but to succeed. You know, the thought of putting a 62-year-old man back on the street wasn't acceptable, he added further. The mission of Inman soon became the mission of a police officer, Dan McDonald, where the former told the cop the story of the homeless man. And just like Inman, he refused to give up because of the problem of the lack of documentation. He said, "I like a challenge." As mentioned earlier, Helinski was born in Poland. However, he was a U.S. citizen. McDonald said, "First we had to figure out that we needed a consular record. They had finally found it, and now it was time to take another step." After finding out that he is a U.S. citizen, the duo Samaritans helped him get a driver's license along with a social security card. The man who spent 3 years of his life as no one finally had an identity. McDonald, too, was putting his best efforts to help Helinski. He said, "First, I drove him personally to the local tax collector's office, where he was able to get a temporary state of Florida ID card." They had successfully done away with one of the obstacles. Very soon, the homeless man would get his identity back. This is what the homeless man, Inman, and McDonald were hoping. The duo had gained lots of confidence by this little success. However, still there was a lot to do. In the last 3 years, Helinski had never felt so happy. His ordeal that spanned for 3 years was finally coming to an end. The man was extremely thankful for Inman. The man explained he went beyond the call of duty. The old man himself was a mystery. The officer and Inman had managed to find a lot about the old man, but still they were unfamiliar to one aspect of his life. This man had something in his past that the duo had not expected ever. Helinski had given up all the hopes before his case came under Officer McDonald. These 3 years had stripped him of his confidence, faith, and hopes. His grim situation had taken the best of him. He recalled, "People would just walk past me and ignore me." As Inman and McDonald proceeded with their investigation, they stumbled upon an interesting fact about the man. The man had not told them anything about it. They wondered why he kept them in the dark. It was such an important detail. It was time to confront the old man. They had a number of questions on their mind. They had been struggling to find his identity for a long time. And not for once did he tell them about that particular deed that he had done years ago. Amazingly, Helinski owned a bank account. He had made his account in a Tampa bank. The name of the bank had changed over the years. At the time when the man had made his account, it was Landmark Bank, but over the years it changed to Bank of America. And due to the change in name, Helinski soon forgot about it. He remembers it was Landmark Bank, and then it became Bank of America. Whereas he was struggling to live another day on the street, the benefits were paid into his account regularly. Due to the change in the name of the bank, he had forgotten about it. This is strange. How could someone forget their bank account? Helinski had the memories of the bank erased from his mind due to the fact that the account was not storing much money. As mentioned earlier, Helinski was an American citizen and he did have Social Security benefits. And it was because of that the amount in his bank was increasing year after year. The money that was forgotten and unspent had grown into a valuable amount by then. Finally, the team got their hands on it. We don't know the exact amount, but have been told it is good. Helinski's carer did not know how to react. He indeed had never seen a case like this, so what was going to happen next? Officer McDonald said, "I think we were both stunned, not quite sure what to say." Well, the statement pretty much sums up their situation when they learned about it. Though the amount was not very big, it was more than enough to help him have some secure housing. McDonald explained, as a homeless liaison officer, the bread and butter of my work often involves hopping department to department, trying to help homeless people find the ID they need in order to get things like work and housing. He had little hope when he had started on this case, but their perseverance and hard work made it a success. So when they heard about a bank account in his name, it put them in disbelief. His ordeal was now over, which implies that he would not have to live on the streets anymore. Gone are the days when he used to sleep by hugging himself tight so that he could get some warmth in teeth-chattering winter. Now finally he could get himself a house, a real house made of stones and bricks and not of cardboard boxes. The man had no words to express his feelings. Life had been playing games with him since the time he relocated to the U.S. The man would have never remembered or found his bank account had Inman and the officer not stepped in to help him. Had they not taken interest in his life story, Helinski would still be sleeping on the streets and living in a home made of cardboard boxes. Helinski explained, "I guess I'm exhilarated, excited, you know." The man deserved to be this happy, as this was the first time he had felt happy in 3 years. The first thing that the homeless man thought was to get himself home. He thought of renting a small apartment with his deposit. Inman was still in disbelief. He said, "The situation looked really difficult, and I wasn't sure how it was going to end up. If it failed, it meant we'd put a 62-year-old man on the street. And Officer McDonald and I were not okay with that," he added. Inman had taken up the task, but it was going to be very difficult. He expressed John was born in Poland, so it made it even more difficult for him to get a new ID. I helped him out and said that we will figure this out and get him a bed. Helinski always wanted to get out of this sad situation, but had lost hope. Just when he had given up, Inman came into his life and became his savior. Life truly has its own plans. The officer explained he has the money now to move into his own home. He's a very good, sweet, and genuine man. Though the case has reached its final stage, the officer still thinks that he needs care. McDonald said, "Our job is not to arrest someone, it's to help them. Homeless people are still accountable to the law, but they're now starting to see we can be trusted. And this new model and field of policing is gaining popularity very quickly, I think." Unfortunately, not every homeless man is so fortunate. Some have to die there after spending their whole life on the street. One should not suffer so badly because of their luck. This unique story won many people's hearts. It became a hot story in the world of news media. Every channel was running the story, and each and every individual who came across it was surprised. Not many homeless people know that they too are entitled to the same rights and securities as other normal citizens are. However, very few of them apply for these securities. But what if they don't have an account? Well, there is a solution to this problem also. In case homeless people do not own a bank account, they can make use of securities via direct mail sent by a third party. And this is not just the responsibilities of officers, but ours too, to help homeless men. They too deserve a better future.